UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has gathered European leaders and the Prime Minister of Canada, all of America's allies, to an emergency summit today to try to fix some of the damage done by President Trump. The summit is being held to discuss security and support for Ukraine. This comes just days after President Trump hosted Ukrainian, that's pretty liberal to call him hosting. He hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House. He berated him, and then he kicked him out of the White House. European leaders are now scrambling to fill a diplomatic void that's been left open by Donald Trump. Today, Starmer announced that Britain, Ukraine, and France have agreed to work on a ceasefire plan to end the war in Ukraine and present it to the United States. Leaders are meeting today, and according to the Associated Press, they are expected to discuss establishing a European military force to be sent to Ukraine, something like a new NATO, which the Trump administration has also recently undermined. Earlier today, Starmer held a joint call with the leaders of the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, about the efforts to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Starmer's office said they agreed that Europe must, quote, drive forward urgent action that will secure the best outcome, which will be vital for Europe's future security, end quote. For more on this, I'm joined by Toomas Ilves. He's the former president of Estonia. Before that, he served as the country's Minister of Foreign Affairs. President Ilves, good to see you. Thank you for being with us. What a remarkable change of affairs in just the last few days. We knew in the Trump administration that we were headed toward a shifting American stance toward Russia. But given what happened on Friday, on one hand, the world's very alarmed. On the other hand, European leaders are picking this up very quickly and trying to fix it.
We don't have much of a choice, to be frank. What are we going to do? I mean, if the United States, which has been since 1944, 45, basically the leader of the West, and has been the guarantor of liberal democracy in the world. Well, now we see that there's been quite a change, and in fact, liberal democracy seems to be more of a curse word among many people in the U.S., and rather Russia seems to be the model that people wish to emulate. So there's no option but for Europe to get its act together.
What is that? You've spent time you're obviously very familiar with the United States. You were an ambassador here. You were educated in the United States. I have had people in the last couple of days tell me that as a result of what happened on Friday, and forget the theatrics of it, just the break with NATO and liberal democracy, that might not be reparable. Can Europe and Canada do what it looks like Keir Starmer is trying to do? Can they create a NATO alternative?
Well, I don't think anyone wants to, but we don't have much of an option. The question is not so much whether we can, but how quickly we can. It takes a long time to ramp something up like that in fact would fulfill the functions currently fulfilled by NATO with the United States in it. Certainly, there are big issues right now. For example, the United States has provided the nuclear umbrella for Europe. Well, what's going to happen to that? Will France and the UK be able to fulfill that role? Or will countries in Europe realize that maybe they as well should get nuclear weapons? So, I mean, there are a lot of big issues here. Of course, the other issue is defense spending. Countries in my part of the world are way over the 2% required and have been for quite a while. On the other hand, much of the rest of Europe is barely there, and many countries, the largest country, Germany, hasn't even reached there yet. So these are difficult issues to deal with. And then finally, I would say the third big issue is troops. Countries aren't really, don't have real functioning armies the way they did during the Cold War, and that will also take a long time to ramp up.
I want to just ask my control room to pop up a map of NATO if we can, because you made some distinctions with some of the countries. Obviously, Europe, the UK and France have nuclear weaponry, so this concept of a nuclear umbrella over Europe would have to start with them. But countries like your own, the Baltic states, Poland, spend much more on military because you're right on that border. You were former Soviet countries that really don't want to see this happen. Why were the Baltic countries not included in this conversation? Now, there was a separate conversation with Keir Starmer. Any particular reason they were not involved, why they were not at that summit?
Well, I find that rather bizarre, given that of the 6 countries that border Russia, 3 were not invited. And after all, it is Russia that is engaged in this war against Ukraine, and the 3 countries are per capita among the biggest contributors to Ukraine, both in military and non-military assistance. So as I wrote, this oversight, if it is an oversight, is redolent, unfortunately, of the failure to mention South Korea in 1950 by the U.S. Secretary of State as countries that the U.S. would defend. I mean, this is the kind of mistake that could have far-reaching repercussions.
But it's that kind of thing that has people in Estonia and Latvia, Lithuania and Poland, it has them worried, because they do see that Russia looks at these things, and they do see that if Ukraine falls, it is a signal. It's, you know, a lot of people say Ukraine's not part of NATO, so it shouldn't be defended the way NATO is. But if Russia expands into an independent country, a sovereign state, and gets away with it, people in your part of the world think that Russia could go farther.
Well, Ukraine may not be in NATO. It is a European country. It is a liberal democracy with free and fair elections. I mean, the membership in NATO is kind of irrelevant. And in fact, it's worth keeping in mind when Russia first invaded Ukraine in 2014, joining NATO wasn't even in the cards. Countries, the people in Ukraine were not interested in joining NATO. So it's a whole different scene now since they were invaded. Clearly, from the point of view of I'd say our countries, the 3 and others, we have been the ones that have been consistently right about Russia's intentions, and several people, I mean, most notably the Prime Minister of Finland, after the invasion, said, we should have listened to you. Well, I mean, that was a brief moment. We continue to be countries that are probably more realistic and have a better understanding of Russia's intentions than most. Yet not to be present is something which, well, it's kind of strange, especially when there are many countries there that really don't know very much at all about what Russia is doing.
Toomas Ilves, good to talk to you again. Thank you for being with us this morning. Toomas Ilves is the former president of Estonia.